You know, when I think about the amount of power that we have to where we've changed and we are literally in the best position that we've ever been. Like we have power to where the only thing that stops us now is our internal issues, to where we really don't have anything else to ask the rest of the world. Like what more could they give us? I watched a show. It was a documentary about this family. This family, they had bought this house. And come to find out, this house had this interesting history to it. I think they was in Virginia. So the black man bought this house because his wife used to see it all the time and she was obsessed with it. She was learning everything about it. She was, Googling it, finding the history about it, going into the city library. And, the brother ended up doing well for himself. And the white family that stayed in his house, this house, he ended up buying it. So it's this old school house that's been there 100 years plus. You understand me? It's been there for a very long time. And so they start doing the history on it, and, they start finding interesting things about it. Like they got secret corridors. They got all of the antique stuff that was in there, right? And then some of their family even worked with the original family that was living in the house, which was his white family. And so they start doing more history on it, and then they found out that the house was a plantation. It used to be a plantation, and the black people felt a little interesting about it. They had mixed emotions. And one emotion, they felt like, damn, a lot of things have changed, that I'm now the owner of this plantation. Then these two white guys contact them that were archaeologists, and they called them up and they said, you have basically one of like the last 15 of these outhouses. It wasn't their house. It was this house on the side of it. And the archaeologist said that this house, we got to do some testing, but we believe that this was slave quarters. Yeah, it was 60 minutes. So they go do the testing. The archaeologists come and they measure the doors. They look at the nails, see how they was handmade. They study in the house, and they come back at the, sun up to sundown. And they said this was definitely slave quarters, right? And not only was it slave quarters, it was originally made for a white family. You understand me? And so they start doing genealogy, and the genealogy wrapped up around it and found out that they family, make a long story short, used to be slaves at that very plantation. Right? Like they family used to be slaves at the very plantation. And they end up owning the house. But it made them have an eerie feeling because they had the most preserved slave quarters in Virginia. They said there's only like 15 of these left. They said the guy said it used to be hundreds of thousands of these all over. Where the slaves all had to live in this one quarter. Small little house. Like the size of one room. Right? And then he was like, man, this stuff is weird. And the family was like, one of the sisters was like, this makes me feel like whole, because she was basically saying that this is where it started for my family. She was like, damn, this actually makes me feel whole knowing the history of where we started, because a lot of black people don't know where we're from. So we got to do genealogy tests, and we have to find where we're from so we can get some sort of connection. And that connection actually does make us feel grounded, because we walk around and without any connection, we really feel lost. And the rest of the world make fun of us. We go to Africa and they ask us where we from. We go to London, they ask us where we from. All over the world want to make fun of, Americans, black Americans, if you will, because we don't know where we from. And most of us, we can do some trace lineage and be like, well, we from America. Everybody didn't come as slaves. Some people do, they trace lineage. They say, well, we came from Africa, right? But, 90% of black people plus don't know where they from. And that's a trauma that we deal with. There's not too many people on the planet that understand that trauma. Right? And so even when I go traveling, people ask me this all the time. Foreigners love to ask this. You understand me? You know, and that's why, you know, I claim the whole continent. Don't worry about it. I'm from Earth, the whole planet mine. 196,940,000 square miles. How about that? It's all mine. I ain't displaced. But it also is important to know your history and to know the knowledge of where you come from, because it gives you a power to understand yourself more and deeper. It's one thing to even jumping across the pond and understanding where you come from based on what similarities and traits you have, a DNA connected, what haploid groups you have connected with people on the continent. Is not as powerful as knowing your history for the last 300, 400, 500 years, because that's the history you working to get over, because that's what's deep in your DNA. We've been over here for 500 years plus. So if you came from Africa, the last 500 years is who you are. So you really want to study that and know who you are, where you came from, what's the family history, what's your connections, what Native American tribes you connected to, what treaties you came under, who was your family members, who was they fighting, were they a part of insurrections, what did they do, what did they do once they got free? Because I was looking at this story of this black woman like she was like 119 years old. I said, damn, 119 years old. It's possible, you know, and this is the story that came out, I think, like in 2011, one of those times. But she was born in like 1890 something. And I was like, damn, that means it could have been possible if her mother had a late birth, that her mother was a slave. But it was for sure that her great-grandmother was a slave. I said, damn, man, it's not that far removed. Like, you go to two different people and you go ask, like, you know, you go to a white family that got an old grandmother that's 100 plus, and, you know, you asked her who her grandma was and what did they do, or you asked her who their great-grandma was, and they'll tell you, you know, they was a housewife, or they was in this industry, or their family did this. You go to a black person and you can ask them who their great-grandparent was, and it's a possibility that they were slaves. You know, that's the possibility. Like, so you have to understand how fresh this is for us. When your great-great-grandparent was a slave, a human capital that had nothing. Like, there's no comparable atrocity on the planet Earth in 500 years of not being seen and treated like a human being in your family bloodline DNA. So 1865 did not free the slaves, because that was something that was in the blood, that was trauma. And that trauma is definitely recorded. You feel me? So when we think about why our internal issues are the greatest barriers than our external issues, is because we have not broken out that mental, spiritual bondage that runs in our blood, because it ain't that far away. Like, imagine, just think about this. Imagine if, like, your great-great-grandfather was Michael Jordan. You will feel like you will be a baller. Like, the balling is in your blood. Like, man, shoot, that's in my bloodline. What you mean? So what does it mean when your great-great-great-grandfather was a slave or grandmother? Because any of the family before, and that was living during that time before 1865, it was slaves. It's not that far removed, right? And think about your parents growing up in the 60s, in the 70s, how closer that was. Then you got your grandparents growing up in the 20s. In the 1910s, how close that was, like 30 years ago. So those are the same people that started your family bloodline and make you who you are today. They pass down habits, rituals, ideas, right? So how much of that's in the family that grew your grandparents up, your great-grandparents up, your mother and father, how much is that is based on the habits that were entrained in the people from being slaves for 500 years. How much of who you are is because you come from a lineage of slavery? So what we dealing with so many different things because, and this is why they don't want to, when you don't teach critical race theory in a school, you do a disservice. And I don't know critical race theory as far as what they really teach. But I know, I grew up where we got taught everything because that's, you're supposed to learn the truth. I think it's beneficial for young white children and young black children. I think it's beneficial for a German to know that they great-grandparents was Nazis. I think it's beneficial for a white American to know that their great-grandparents were Ku Klux Klan. So even when you don't go to slavery, let's bring it back up to modern day, 1865, and then we got Jim Crow laws. Wait, your great-grandparents were a part of enforcing Jim Crow laws. That's the family that you grew up in. All right? They were there during the time where the banks were implementing red lines and creating ghettos. Our parents had to survive, right? Some of them going to... This is one thing Kendrick was talking about in one of his albums, and I remember because I talked about this before that. And I want y'all to think about this. I had this conversation with the brother King Randall. And, trigger warning for all of those who done been through something. But this is the reason why black people, we talk about white folks and incest. But there's a lot of incest that happens in the black community that we don't talk about. Everybody who's been touched by an uncle, an auntie, cousin, somebody of that nature, that's incest. So we make fun of other communities but never deal with what's inside our own families. But how did that happen? Well, if you got a family that came out, because, the brothers say slavery is the negative history of whites, not the negative history of blacks. We were the victims. That's what we survived. But if you got family that came out of 1865, if that uncle, what do you think was happening during those 500 years? The uncle, they was getting raped. They was getting touched. The brother, somebody said, how did the conversation get here? The conversation get here because a lot of these internal barriers that we have, we don't understand where they came from. Why are we a people frozen without having the ability to control ourselves? You talking about the original Egyptians participated in incest? Man, I don't want to hear all that shit. First of all, they weren't called Egyptians. They were Kemetic people. And then you have surrounding civilizations who were just as great. And that was not no common practice. But the issue is this, because I'm going to bring it back up. The issue is that when these people came out from 1865 out of slavery, they had just been beaten, raped, tortured, molested. Like some of them came out, they had slavery farms. Right, where they had homosexual farms in slavery, and these farms were meant to prime these young boys up. And those were the ones that sold the most because they would sell them to homosexual slave masters. They were already broken in. So it's like you got to understand some of this history. They had some that they call vixens, like we call vixens models, but they had some that the women were some of the more light-skinned ones that came from children of rape, right? And those were the ones that were considered to be prettier that fetched for a little more. And those were the ones that were sold for a little more. So let's say 1865, they say, okay, well, listen, this family that just went through all of this torture and rape and murder and all of this, hey, y'all free now. They free. They like, okay, we free, but damn, we fucked up. We just went through all of this. So from 1865, let's say to 1920, because black people decided that we just go focus and build. But then you got to remember, they left that plantation, they went to sharecropping, which was just another form of it. And then they was in the household with themselves as victims, with no healing, no aid, no psychiatrists, psychologists, no understanding real ways to try to figure out how to heal these issues that they just went over. And do you think brothers are just walking around talking about their experiences? Nah. Sisters are talking about their experiences? Nah. So they fucked up for real. But they so-calledly free. But not mentally, they messed up. So then, not only they dealing with sharecroppers, then you hear about Black Wall Street. They bombing these folks because even with all of the trauma they went through, black people still somehow found a way to start building generational wealth. I mean, we was getting money. Our literacy was off the rate. You understand me? We building. We got beautiful debutante balls. Why? Because we used to dream about all the things that we would do once we got free. We had visions in our head. We would just, our imaginations would run wild. But we still had all of the issues of being victims of 500 years of trauma. So not only when you insert that we went to war, we had to fight for them. The brothers would come back all messed up. Nobody dealt with the PTSD of all the masculine brothers going to war, then coming back and getting treated like shit. So I'm giving you a timeline, so I want you to understand that. And let's fast forward to, we going through the Great Depression, but even, we had savings. We actually didn't do as bad as white families during the Great Depression. But of course, that's when they decided to create the middle class. They created the middle class. They stopped us from buying homes, real estate, getting loans. So black people going through devastation after devastation. Still, they have no time to go through the healing, right? We speed it up. We go through a couple of wars. You understand me? Now, heroin is all throughout our communities. We doing drugs. They doing psychedelics, getting high, messed up. Brothers got PTSD. They revolutionary still with their spirit because they still got some of that Zulu spirit of vision, of freedom, and things of that nature that they've been having. 60s come around, right? And then, of course, insert in that, you got conscious communities with Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the Ethiopian Brotherhood, the Black Dragon Society, the UNIA, you got Noble Drew Ali, you got the Moors, the Nation of Islam. So now we finally at least getting some insert of consciousness. That was the first time that black people got help. When these black men decided that they wanted to start teaching knowledge of self to start help redeeming, healing, and repairing. Like, let's deal with it. In 1930, Nation of Islam, the greatest mental health facility that black people have ever gotten. They was getting off drugs, cleaning themselves off, getting jobs, protecting the community, changing up their names, their ways, their mindset. That was Nation of Islam has been the best mental health facility that we've ever known. There's no arguing that. And we talking about going from the 30s to the 60s, right? Then, of course, now we start to, in the 60s and 70s, they dealing with crack. Then you also have CIA start running these programs. Of course, you got COINTEL. Then they start running the programs that started from Alan Turing, this homosexual white boy who first started the AI stuff. But that's where they got all of the MK Ultra. They used to run the stuff. That was in the newspaper. Start doing experiments on us. So you messed up. Don't even know what's going on. Don't even know how to deal with it. They will embed messages. It's so much going on, right? So where was the time where we got a chance to stop and breathe? This is what I'm trying to get to. When do we have a chance to stop and breathe? I don't remember it. When did we have a chance to ever deal with the issues and the problems and the plights? Never. So you go from the 60s, we getting education on, but it ain't properly funded. You got different schools of thought, some who fighting for integration, some who fighting for, separation, right? So we integrated and we believed that we got somewhere. And then the same brother that integrated everybody that was a leader for Black America gets killed, creating another trauma spell in front of everybody. Man, it's getting bad up there in these streets. Malcolm X and Martin get killed. You dig? Now we start to go into the crack era. Getting over that, The crack era comes. Worst thing that ever happened to black people when they smoked that pipe. Destroyed our families that never even dealt with their issues and problems in the first place. Now you insert crack, you damn near make it impossible for them to ever heal. Then out of that, you had hip hop that started to come from the nation of the gods of earth. We started to figure out different forms of expression because that's what people do when their spirit is down, right? So you got hip hop, gods of the earth intervention in that. Then you got arts and craft, graffiti, breakdancing, hip hop, b-boy. We try to figure out ways to bring ourselves up. All we had was our spirit, our compilation, our God-given talents, right? And then now it started from basis of corruption. There was a lot of sexual misdeeds that was happening with the brothers in that nobody ever deals with. Y'all can go look at the story of African Bambaataa. Then that's when prison rap started. You understand me? Gangster beef. Instead of they calling each other peace God, they start saying, what's up, nigga? The language switched over. Instead of there being, community repairing and programs with the Crips and the Blood, now and to fight against the police, they start fighting each other. They start doing wet, sherm, smoking weed, crack, killing each other. So instead of the Black Panthers revolutionary, they was doing crack. The Black Panthers got caught doing like that. So it's like, now we fast forward. We in the 90s with gangster rap. Tupac and Biggie, they kill each other. Creates an issue, rift within the culture. We slide into 2000, you throw in technology and the internet. we dealing with the social media. That's another form of distraction and issues and problems that we dealing with, but it gives us some power and leverage. Each one of these things we learning from, we getting power, getting leverage, we still growing, right? We fast forward, we go through Katrina, we go through Bush, we go through 9/11, we go through recession, we go through Obama, false hope, false flag, we go through Donald Trump, reignite racism, BLM, you understand me? Then 2022, and here we are. And we ask ourselves, what the hell is wrong with us? That's all I was trying to get to, y'all. So when we talk wealth, we can't do shit no matter how great the information is until we deal with what's inside us eternally. I just want y'all to understand that you have the understanding history of what's happening for you able to appreciate the solutions and how deep these things are. So as you celebrate these agendas and you allow yourself to be a part of all of these different things, but we've never dealt with what happens internally and inside the house first. So as you connect yourself to this movement and that movement and all these other shit, you never go find no freedom and liberation in that. And now we dealing with a lot. We just went through a pandemic. You understand me? Like, you have to understand, we never had a break. You did? So, I want you to put that on your mind because, until we deal with what's inside us internally, and we not going to be able to do anything else because we got to be able to make righteous demands with the new power that we have today because we got a lot of power, but we act like we don't have none. And imagine the people realizing their power. Shit, I listen. When I see us fight for Margaret Safford plans, and I see us fight for abortion harder than we ever fight for family, because I don't see campaigns or corporations putting out for black family, pushing that. Once we fight for that more, you got to understand where we at with it. It's a tough place. Y'all might not see the world the way I see it. Some of y'all do. Some of y'all appreciate it. Some of y'all... Oh, there we go. They trying to click me off. So anyway, people, I appreciate y'all for locking in, for tapping in. You understand me? I just had to get that off. I wouldn't even plan on talking about that, but y'all know how these things go. You understand me? I'll lock in with y'all later. You know, this definitely been a high level conversation. Next time I have it recorded, you know, make sure y'all go listen to them shows, because each one I'm designing them purposely for each one to be a key that can unlock you. Each one is a key, and you a key. You understand me? And once you understand that each one of these things, it's medicine. It's medicine. If you follow it, it's giving you, you know, blueprint, how to unlock yourself, how to heal yourself, how to deal with who we are, what we just been through. Because we are an extension, we a bloodline. We ain't been through one thing, we'd have been through all things, but we strong enough to be able to handle anything and everything that comes next. If we done been through everything, and I ain't even mentioned everything, if we done been through all of that plus some, man, this is easy money. A recession is easy money. All we got to do is get the knowledge, have righteous demands, and some collective activities. And y'all lock in with me. We go turn high-level conversations to high-level execution. But there should be not one of them episodes. You might like Billy Carson. You might like Yaki. You might like the other one. You literally need to sit down and watch every single last one with your whole entire family and everybody you know. Because y'all need to have high-level conversations together. Peace, family. I appreciate y'all locking in. Love yourself.